Hello, welcome to PS with Jenn, where we are revamping everything that we had originally created 3 years ago as the start of PS with Jenn. Today we get to talk about me and how I came to light. PS with Jenn has been evolving over years of practicing and being a nurse, being a mom, and being a real life patient that needed support with inflammation and weight challenges post 5 babies. And we originally created it because we had people who were curious about different topics and stuff that was happening in Powell Studio. And it's been amazing to see the positivity and the request for more. So thank you and stay tuned, listen in and learn all about where I started and where Powell Studio and PS with Jenn is headed. So in 2004, I had graduated from nursing school. I attended UMass Boston and got my first job at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center in Boston. I worked on a neurology and gastric bypass floor where patients were heavy lifting because they had just received gastric bypass or they had a neurological condition, whether it be traumatic or seizure activity, really in a time of vulnerability and needing support on all different levels. I had a brand new baby and a 3-year-old at home. And so my 8-month stint at BIDMC ended when I got an opportunity to go to South Shore Hospital and work in their NICU. That's their neonatal ICU. And the preemie babies are the strongest patients that I've ever had the opportunity to take care of. I met families that I still am in touch with today. And this experience led me into an opportunity that continued to grow me as a team player, as a compassionate provider, and I miss that actual team every single day. I ended up going down to the emergency room, stayed at South Shore Hospital, and I was in the emergency room serving both adult and pediatric patients. So we had some days that I was running the pediatric triage team. Some days I was taking care of them. Other shifts I was in the sexual assault care. I was in the emergency room taking care of patients post-traumatic accidents. That's actually how I met my husband. Stay tuned. We ended up really evolving as nurses in that emergency room because you were thought, you had to think on the fly. You had to work quickly. You were in traumatic situations and you had the quick and dirty, which is different than the ICU experience that you had with the NICU. You had to know everything down to their blood gas and every second and every ounce that they had. You were working quickly, swiftly, and efficiently with everybody that you had in the emergency room to work with you. I went to the night shift. And when I was in the emergency room, I learned about sexual assault nurse examiners program. I felt blessed to be naive that I had never actually known about it, but appalled that I had not had an experience that I couldn't wait to start to do more. So I became certified as a sexual assault nurse examiner. And from there, I was serving sexual assault patients that were in every Boston City hospital. So I would be separate from South Shore Hospital, responding to Boston City hospitals with evidence collection, being compassionate, supporting, working as a multidisciplinary team with the rape crisis centers, with the Boston Police Department, making sure that patients had trauma-informed care. The trauma-informed training that I actually received in this role has created an impact through my whole life. Understanding and preventing burnout because you're trauma-informed has been so powerful because life is crazy. It's hectic and we all have a lot going on. We carry heavy loads into our positions. No matter what level you work at and what position you're in, you're expected to show up your best self. And it taught me how I needed to evaluate what I did have to offer someone, whether it was what I thought they needed versus what I actually had the ability to support them in. I might have been the first person that they ever, had listened to them. I may have been the first one to pause and believe and strategize about their next steps and to care about, what was their basic needs instead of my own. I was not there to judge. I was not there to decide whether or not something happened. I was there to perform my position of collecting evidence and making sure that they had everything that they needed for their next steps of success and healing as a survivor. I continued in that emergency room at South Shore Hospital for over 10 years. At this point, I had had my 5th child, and that was never the plan. Too many fun weddings. We ended up having Will, and I had this opportunity where becoming the Central Mass Regional Coordinator is a dream job that I never imagined would be presented to me. But after I had served as a sexual assault nurse examiner for Boston for 8 years, this position, which actually required a lot of effort to get. I think I would say that all of my other positions as a nurse came easy to me. I never really had to try hard to get a job. And I think now about those who are graduating who need to do multiple interviews and really work hard to get into the nursing field. Really difficult to be hired as a new grad. I walked into my first interview and had a job that day. I worked at South Shore Hospital and was able to navigate not being so afraid of change and trying new things, but really thinking about what felt great to me and what supported my family. It challenged me to push through and to learn a little bit more about myself and my resilience and how I could navigate working in different areas without changing my entire career. That's one of the beautiful things I think about healthcare is that you don't need to go get a whole new degree, but you do need to push yourself to learn how to care for different age ranges. Through my career, I've taken care of NICU to nanas, and so I've had the ability to really support every age range on a different level. It's a true gift. When I was interviewing for my SANE Central Mass Regional Coordinator position, I had to go through a series of interviews where I was being interviewed by people I had looked up to for many years. They were working for the state, which Massachusetts is so lucky to have a consistent program where sexual assault is consistent across the state. Most states have like programs that are hospital to hospital. So there's no consistency, there's lack of support, there's lack of training, and victims are very commonly re-victimized while people are trying to provide good care. And so I was able to get this job, and in this role, I was removed from the bedside. I had to work in a leadership position where I was then supporting the 30 plus providers that collected evidence in Central Mass at the 5 SANE sites that I was responsible for. I worked with physicians to make sure that they were prepared for patients. I worked with rape crisis centers to make sure that we were in collaboration and working well together seamlessly to go and support the patients that were there in real time. I worked with police departments. I worked with college campuses, EMS, really trying to educate everyone and anyone about services that were available, as I couldn't believe that it took late into my 20s to realize that they even existed. I wanted to make sure that we could do our very best. And this is something that has stayed with me my whole life, and strong, elevated expectations of making sure that I make everyone feel special. And I want to make sure that everyone knows that I'm there, truly listening and present, is continuing to be important for me throughout my career. But in this role, particularly as a SANE nurse, it was so important. I had to help my staff that were really feeling heavy and taking home a lot of the pressure, and the resiliency in that role was really needed. So we had lots of debriefings and education and opportunities in that role. I really thought that I would retire from there. I had no idea that what lied ahead for me was Powell Studio. I was gifted an opportunity to shadow and to work alongside a provider, Patty, who owned her own med spa in Weymouth. I actually worked with her daughter at South Shore Hospital, Jacqueline. We would be in the emergency room Googling, how does one become an aesthetic provider? And all of the trainings were about 10 days long, and they were out in California. And my friend Bree and I would look at each other like, my husband's not letting you go. Is yours? And we'd be like, nope, let's go back to work. And so Jacqueline had overheard us and shared with me an opportunity. Hey, I know you were interested in this, and my mom is actually looking to mentor some providers. And I was like, okay. I'll try it. I had no idea what a décolleté was. For those of you who don't know, it's your chest. I was using Neutrogena, thinking I was doing a good job, blessed that I never had acne or really terrible skin to worry about. But I did notice that I was feeling my age and then some with 5 kids at home, working the night shift or working in high intense, positions really was taking a toll on me. A lot of places, when you become an aesthetic nurse, you're doing a day training. You're there for a few hours, you're learning techniques very quick. We're not business owners. We are not business people. We don't know how to manage a team. I'm not being, a leadership role that I know of. And so when I watched Patty, I was engulfed. And for a whole year, I just watched her do consultations, watched her treat. But I can say that it wasn't until I was able to actually do the work that things were sticking. It was so new to me and I was so overwhelmed. And now I look at this aesthetic world and how it's grown and how so many people are excited to get involved. And I love that. I love being able to have that combination of teaching and bedside nursing and consultation and support and being able to really encourage people to step into this world because I would never look back. I have taken my years as a standard healthcare provider. I have learned so much in those roles. I was so young and naive. I evolved and I was pushed into hard situations, to present in front of an entire room full of state troopers to make sure that they were listening and understood their impact from a blonde, white female nurse. It's not easy to make sure that a physician is listening to a female nurse and make sure that they understand how we can support each other and really drive a beautiful outcome in a trauma-informed multidisciplinary team was something that I had to learn. And I always thought that this podcast actually had to be perfect. And I wanted to start it years in advance, but I thought that it had to be so formal and so meticulous that I delayed doing that. And now it's supposed to be relaxed and to be part of talking to a conversation about your girlfriend, hey, did you know that you're supposed to exfoliate every day? Really keeping it casual so that people can be thoughtful consumers is something I realized throughout all of my years is that we're all working really hard. We're all trying our best in so many different ways to live our best life, to be the healthiest we can be, to be a good friend, a good wife, a good peer. And there was so much confusion about being a thoughtful consumer and so much confusion about, career positions and roles that I had to make a really difficult decision and leave my role in the state. So I had worked as the Central Mass Regional Coordinator for several years. And when I was done shadowing with Patty, I thought I would work with her. And our schedules didn't align because I worked full-time in Worcester. It was like by the time I got home, her office was closing. And I ended up having to make a hard decision to become a business owner. My husband was like, "What are you doing?" We already had 5 small children. He owns his own business, is a fireman, and I was an emergency room nurse. We went from both being essential to saying, please just trust me. It's always been a situation where I need to give him the baked cake, not the ingredients, because if you give him the ingredients, it's not going to go well. Panic, very much so. So we ended up at that point, I met with Jill Beresford. I don't know if any of you guys have ever heard of the Mass Small Business Development Center, but they have been instrumental, or actually I should say, not they, Jill. Jill has been instrumental in my ability to confidently make decisions as a business owner. Each step of the way, I started at Rebel Studio, where I rented a room. I only had 3/4 walls at that point. It might have been like, I don't know, a 4x4 square foot. I did have friends that I would see at their home via concierge trying to figure out like, okay, how am I going to make this work so I don't have a hobby and that I can make sure that I'm providing for my family. I stayed at the same job and started my aesthetics, and I had a 3-year overlap so that I could make sure that I knew that I had a client base that would support a salary that would replace where I was working. Knowing that everything in my state job was good, but I had come from Boston where they had a lot more funding, a lot more connection. Their trauma-informed teams that were multidisciplinary were just driving really well. And I felt like I was fighting an uphill battle when I worked in Central Mass. And so I knew that change in the state took a long time, just like state change in standard healthcare. And I knew that that wasn't going to happen in my lifetime. So I ended up pausing and reevaluating completely, like, okay, how can I make this aesthetic work, this aesthetic industry? I knew at that point I would be leaving the job I thought I would retire from and jump into aesthetics, which was so new to me. And again, as a perfectionist, I was just panicked. Like, how can I make sure everything goes perfectly? And I was forced to pause and just figure out, you're going to learn each step of the way. And we ended up having the conversation at home, like, okay, here's what you need to do. I sat with Jill every single week with the Mass Small Business Development Center, and I built out a business plan of how I was going to make sure that I saw the right clients, how I was going to make sure I focused on what services I love the most. I was able to get my new medical director that was doing a lot more services than who I had originally learned from. And I went and I quit my job with the state December 31st, 2019, to be full-time in aesthetics. So shortly after there, I was building out 2 locations with the Lash Ladies. I had been at their Kingston location doing injections, just again, everything in one room. My OGs are always like, can you believe how much you fit in there? It's ridiculous. Now that we have, 5,000 square feet between Powell Studio and Powell Studio Academy, it is hard to believe all that we were able to accomplish in that small room. And we had an opportunity where I did have people who wanted to work for me, but in that one room, there's really nowhere for us to go. So we were going to expand actually into Hanover at Merchants Row. And at Merchants Row, they, again, would only have one room. So when COVID happened and the world shut down, I had 5 kids home from school. And I was trying to navigate, okay, I quit my full-time stable job that was providing me an opportunity to provide for my family. And now I'm home with 5 kids that I'm supposed to teach and run my business. So I thought that that was challenging. And then in April, our house caught fire and we ended up having to be displaced for 8 months during COVID. So not only did we have this opportunity where I'm like, okay, I don't have a stable paycheck. Everything is shut down in the world. We have 5 kids home from school, and I am going to just try and find a location of my own, because at the Lash Lady, I have one room and I don't know how many people are actually going to fit in each location, because there were limits to how many people you could be around. You had to wear masks. You had to do all of these things that kept everyone safe. And I hate unpredictable. I really do a bad job not knowing what's going to come next. And all of this stuff was out of my control. So I started looking, and I thought I would rent a room for the rest of my career. I had no desire, or not no desire. I had no idea, and may have never even taken this opportunity if I wasn't pushed because of COVID and all of the restrictions to venture and find 222 Webster Street. I had a gentleman from town who was responsible for the lease here on Webster Street in Hanover, Dave Ellis, and he actually returned my phone call during COVID. I had only seen pictures online, and I had an opportunity to come and look at the space. My daughter and I went through the back door like they recommended. The alarm went off, and the police very quickly arrived to understand why we were in this building. My peers, my husband, and my daughter were like, "Mom, what are you doing?" I can say having a vision is something that I am blessed has always come to me, that I know that I can think bigger and I can envision taking a space that maybe isn't as beautiful as it appears in the moment, but that we will make it that way. And the lease worked out. I was taking a risk, but so was the owner of the building, and allowing me to completely disassemble and rebuild Powell Studio in here. So while everyone was home, shut down, hunkered down, having beverages, eating lots of food, I was here in what I could control, building out Powell Studio. I coincidentally, finished my build out, left the Lash Ladies, moved here in October of 2020. And so it's been just over 5 years that we have been in this lease. And during 2020, I was also with the privilege to train for Galderma. So they had asked me prior to the pandemic if I would be interested in teaching. And when I had all these other experiences, I realized okay, I love the bedside. I left the emergency room. I went to more education and managerial. That was great, but it left me missing the bedside. Now I'm back at the bedside and I miss teaching. It's oh my gosh, you can never get it all. And so when the opportunity presented itself that I could teach, and I had learned from several beautiful people that were so knowledgeable, so approachable, and so excited to support you, that I wanted to give that opportunity to others and make sure that they felt confident in a space that they could grow. I knew the aesthetic market was evolving like crazy thanks to Zoom and everyone home on multiple computers and technology. They were aging rapidly. For those of you who don't know, your computers are absolutely aging you more rapidly than the sun. Wear your sunscreen to bed. I'm close to that point. So we took on that role, or I took on that role as a Galderma educator, and I was now opening Powell Studio with a small and mighty team, leaving the studio on certain days to teach all over the country, depending on where the demand went. And again, just evaluating what feels good, what is working, where do we need tweaks? And so through my entire career, that's always been the space where you are trying new things, just like filming this podcast and being so uncomfortable. You want to make sure that you can try it, evolve, learn. You want to try a position and see okay, does it fit into your family lifestyle? Does it fit and feel good? Are you providing good outcomes? And so I was able to teach and realized over the years of my positive feedback of oh my gosh, that was the best training I ever had. I'd be really? Oh my God, can we get more of that? And I was offering more training and finding myself in my own office less and less, which created a strain on my own team. After team turnover and realizing, okay, Powell Studio has evolved into not just aesthetics, but wellness. Wellness has been something that's deep rooted in me. I had years of health that I was so excited about, or actually, I didn't even realize how lucky I was until in between my fourth and fifth child. Bradley did me over. When I was pregnant with him, I started with eczema and inflammation and congestion and had these weird symptoms that I had never had to deal with before. And I had gone to my primary care provider. I had gone to all the specialists that they had recommended to me, a weight loss specialist in Boston and the endocrinologist who told me I had an eating disorder. The phentermine that the weight loss specialist wanted to give me gave me the worst ADD I've ever had on the planet. So I don't know how people are doing that, but that is not for me. I was we need to figure out what's really going on. And that's when anti-anxieties and antidepressants were recommended to me. And I'm I'll try anything, but this wasn't the answer. I wanted to make sure that I was getting to the root cause of the problem. And after being discouraged because I was putting in all of this work, I was eating the salads, I was doing the workouts, I was providing for my patients, I was helping them to get better, but why wasn't it working for me? I dove into functional medicine and wellness so intensely. I was certified in genetics and certified in gut health and certified in cellular health, and then detoxification, everything that I could get my hands on, IgG allergy testing, mycotoxin testing. How can we identify and look at and find all of these different spaces that would create inflammation in the body? And it wasn't until I completed all of these things that I was finally able to put together Powell Precision Program and our wellness edition of Powell Studio. I look back now and I think about the 10 years it took me to find these outcomes, and I am ecstatic to be able to offer all of the pathways with my team now at Powell Studio so efficiently, repeatable, beautiful outcomes that we keep celebrating. We have incredible loyal members that are part of Powell Studio, and we notice this community that's being created here now. It is so different than anything I could have ever imagined. You think of aesthetics, it's like service in, service out, but we're building relationships and we're building a community that we keep pouring into, and are blessed that people still come in all the time like, I don't know what I'm doing, whatever Jenn tells me to do, and I'll invest in whatever Jenn says that I'm supposed to do. And I feel blessed that way, but it took me years to build these strategic plans that I could deliver to any age range, any person, and I knew that we were going to drive consistent, deliverable outcomes that they were really looking for. We're not piecemealing a one-off drive-by Dysport. We're not syringe-based. We are outcome-based. And this has driven confidence through and through, both in our patients and in our team, that we know what to recommend. We have thoughtful consultations and assessments that people keep coming in for because they've been referred, like, this is different. And I hope that what's coming for Powell Studio is that we can make the biggest impact. Through this podcast, we'll be able to share with more people all over the world about, I understand that you've invested a lot of money, and I know that you're trying hard. I know that you are putting in the work and not seeing the prize. And so now at Powell Studio, we are so confident in the way that we deliver outcomes, the way we deliver treatment plans, and how we can stop guessing, test, identify, deliver natural, beautiful, repeatable outcomes. And with that, I can't wait to share it with other providers. I hear over and over again, when I share my before and afters at a training, like, oh, that's not the norm. But it is. And it is the norm because I refuse to settle for what was considered acceptable and always push for a wow. I always say at my trainings, if you understand the why, you'll always be able to deliver the wow. I say this to my team. I say it at home. Like, why are you doing that? What is the reason that made you choose to treat that area or to deliver that certain service or choose that product? It should be based in medical terminology, medical assessment. This is not fluff and buff. This is medical. It is serious. It is our licenses that we have on the line as we're providing care for our patients. And so not only do I want my clients and my team to understand how important their strategy and the systems that we have in the office that deliver precision each and every time and wow, beautiful outcomes that they're confident in. But I want to help other providers to grow confidently, both in their ability to deliver a beautiful outcome, but also in business. So I have been blessed that the space next door to us actually opened this past year. We were able to build out Powell Studio Academy. It was supposed to be over the summer. Of course, it's going to meander into the fall and the same day as the Powell birthday bash that we have every year in October. We were literally brushing behind the contractors who were working their butts off to make sure that the space was perfect for our celebration that we have. And it was a success. We had a team that worked hard all week to make sure that everything was beautiful. We had, our loyal clients there to celebrate and to make sure that that we understood how impactful having this community and having these services and having this space to come to build their confidence is, and that's what keeps us going. So 2025 has been about really identifying what is the space where we can make the most impact, removing any waste. I hate waste. And not having clear strategy, clear planning, communication, and teamwork allows for us to all work harder, not smarter, to invest more, to waste financially, to waste time and energy. I look forward to being able to present to my team an opportunity where we can live our best life, feel confident, come in our best selves all the time. I'm so excited for 2026 to be able to present to our clients clarity on why they should invest in their next level at Powell Studio. Our Powell Studio Society has launched in-house, and we're getting it out to the masses come January 1. So please stay tuned. This is more than I could have ever imagined. What we give back to each loyal client and how we get to see the outcomes and celebrate them is a never-ending win for me. Those are my special moments when I get to see the impact that we have and how that changes really everything in our worlds of doing things, putting ourselves out there more confidently and feeling comfortable to take the next step that delivers another wow. In Powell Studio Academy, it's just started. It is something that I have loved to do. And while I'm thinking about preventing burnout, look forward to having in-house trainings that are elevated for our advanced providers. We don't have the newbies training in here yet, but we will. That will come. We're launching successfully. We have trained in here so far in 2025 and had nothing but positive feedback about how this is a training they have never experienced. And I can assure you that I have brought trainings that I have invested well over $100,000 in over my decade of being a business owner in aesthetics and not settling for anything other than a wow. I've had the opportunity to train with Dr. Doan, Lee Walker, Bernice Cohen. I flew her in from California. Cult Aesthetics, I'll throw that out there because their conference was a beautiful one that it's all about how you make someone feel. And I know that Powell Studio will leave you with a wow every single time, whether it's in strategy or thinking bigger, delivering a better outcome, running your business smoother, finding clarity in exactly what feels good for you. Through our recommendations and through our experience and our years of not being willing to settle is going to bring 2026 nothing but success. Thank you so much for listening today. This has been a pleasure of getting everything out there and really just reminding myself about what's going on and how far we've come. I look forward to seeing you at the next episode.